Welcome to PERFPOD, your go-to podcast for everything related to performance management. Whether you're a student or a seasoned professional, you'll find valuable insights and updates here. PERFPOD episodes will be short, snappy, and are particularly targeted at ACCA students studying for either the performance management or advanced performance management exams. They include technical content, exam techniques, and real-world applications, giving you the best chance to pass these two tricky exams. I'm your host, Richard Guyver, also known as the Dentist Accountant. Today we're looking at an overview of the PERFPOD podcasts and also an overview of PM and APM with a little bit of an introduction to me, your host. So the aim of these podcasts is we'll be delivering short, typically around up to 10 minutes, podcasts with content that helps understand technical knowledge, exam technique and so on. Generally we'll avoid calculations, but over time might look to produce some video content too, which can address calculations. As you probably know, there are three very closely linked exams. There's the management accounting exam and applied knowledge level, which feeds into performance management and the applied skills, and that feeds into the strategic professional advanced performance management. The pass rates for both performance management and advanced performance management are generally quite low. They're quite tricky exams. Audit and performance management seem to have similar pass rates, with PM being in the low 40% of people are passing and APM being in the mid 30%. One of the main differences between PM and APM, there's a lot of technical knowledge. There's quite a lot of breadth in performance management. Be looking at things like information, technology and systems, cost and management accounting techniques, looking at decision-making techniques, budgeting techniques, planning, control, and you need to understand methods and calculations. And also section C, 40 of the 100 marks, so 40% are based on scenario questions and moving more towards application, more towards the sort of thing that's expected at APM. And in APM itself, there's not a lot of new technical content. There's a lot of assumed knowledge from PM, and there's also links across to one of the other professional exams, strategic business leader. But really APM is all about application and adding value to the organisation in question. So exam techniques are really critical in APM. And what we need to do is think like a performance management specialist, make sure we're giving sound advice. That's really important, especially as 20% of the marks are professional skills marks, and getting that great approach, sound, smart approach to giving sound advice will help get a lot of those professional marks. So who am I? I'm Richard Guyver. I loved performance management. Not everyone does, but I really found it a very enjoyable subject to study, and perhaps partly as a result of this I did pretty well. I did get 97% and was the global prize winner on performance management, and on advanced performance management again I really enjoyed it and I got 80%, so I passed both first time. So obviously some of that is knowledge, but I also think a lot of that is using the right techniques in exams, and I think that's a big part of definitely APM and to a lesser extent PM, but really is something that I want to focus on in these podcasts: technical content and approach to exams. So my background is a bit convoluted. I did used to be a dentist. I qualified as a dentist, had my own dental businesses. The first one in 2008, just prior to the big crash. But despite that, I had 10 years running that successfully, and over that time I also started around 2 others. And I applied a lot of the techniques, etc., that are in performance management and APM. I hadn't really learned about them in a formal way, but I sort of picked them up over time. So I found that by applying these various techniques, it actually led to business improvements, and that's why I managed to have 3 separate successful businesses whilst also keeping busy as a trustee, as a mentor, etc., etc. However, due to doing clinical dentistry, it led to ongoing back problems which couldn't find a solution for except to give up dentistry, as we say in the industry, hang up my gloves. And so with some reluctance at the time, I took that difficult step. But after a little bit of reflection, I realised that I had, over the time of running the businesses, learnt quite a lot about running business, and actually I really enjoyed that as well. And that's what led me into exploring how I evolved that part of my life, and happened upon ACCA and looked into that and thought, actually I can really see that could be an interesting and exciting new opportunity for me. Throughout my career, I have also been a mentor on a one-to-one basis, and in addition, about 12 years ago, I set up an accelerator program which was aimed at entrepreneurs who were looking to scale and grow their business. So I set that up and I ran that for several years. Although I'm now not involved in that, I am aware that it is still going and still being very effective. I've subsequently worked in public sector, where again PM and APM techniques are relevant but different to the private sector. I'm a trustee for a charity called Dentaid, the dental charity, and that's been very successful. I've been a trustee for 12 years, and that's really grown over those 12 years from a very small charity to in the top few percent in the UK. You could say I did it all back to front. I didn't. I sort of was applying the techniques before I learned about them formally, but obviously I think that's helped me in my exam approach. If you're just setting out learning about these things, there's no reason why you can't sort of benefit from what I can offer on these podcasts. When I was studying, I didn't have any exemptions. I had to sit all 13 exams, had a full-time job, 2 teenage sons as well, and I was helping them with GCSEs and A-levels, their studies. So I really understand discipline needed to perform well in ACCA and the time commitment. And again, I will be happy to share my techniques and what worked for me. And really, I guess that's it. That's a sort of the introduction. It was just an introduction to the podcast, what I hope to achieve with these podcasts, and to know a little bit about me. Hopefully why it might be worth listening to the other ones. I really hope you can join me in future episodes. Like I say, I'll be looking at exam technique, technical knowledge, and so on. We'll probably focus on performance management for the first several podcasts, and then start to develop more into advanced performance management over time. So thanks very much for listening, and if you've got any feedback, please comment in the feedback sections. Pass on to any colleagues who you think would benefit, and if you, over time, any content you want me to do a podcast on, please put that in there, and I'll certainly aim to try and produce content that people are requesting. Signing off until next time, thanks very much.